Did you know that some of the most intense conflicts and biggest decisions humanity has ever faced can be boiled down to a simple game? Ever wondered how peace and cooperation can emerge even when everyone is just looking out for themselves?
The fate of the entire planet could hang in the balance, all because of a silly little game.
So imagine this. Two prisoners have been arrested and are being interrogated separately. They're both guilty, but there's not quite enough evidence to convict them on the major charge. Now, the prosecutors offer each prisoner a deal. If one rats out the other and cooperates, they'll go free while the other serves the full sentence. But if they both cooperate with each other and stay silent, they'll only get a light sentence. Except if they both rat each other out and defect, they'll both be locked up for a long time.
It's like a twisted game of trust, then boom, backstabbing betrayal.
So both prisoners have to make a choice. Do they protect their buddy and cooperate, or do they sell them out to save themselves? You'd think the rational move would be for both to cooperate and get that light sentence, right? But see, here's the mind-bending part. The incentives are structured in a way that encourages flat-out betrayal as the dominant strategy. If you assume your buddy will rat you out to get off scot-free, then it's better for you to sell them out too to avoid the maximum sentence. But if you both think that way, well, now you're both utterly screwed, serving long sentences when you could have been drinking umbrella drinks on a beach.
It's a brutal paradox. Being rational and selfish backfires massively.
And this silly little game, called the prisoner's dilemma, isn't just a thought experiment. Situations just like this have popped up throughout history in the deadliest ways imaginable. Take the start of the Cold War after World War II. The US had shocked the world by nuking Japan, but then in 1949, they detected radioactive isotopes that could only mean one thing: the Soviets had gotten the bomb, too. Some US leaders actually advocated for a surprise nuclear strike to wipe them out while we still had the upper hand. But then we'd risk all-out Armageddon if they retaliated in kind. The whole situation was a nightmarish, real-life prisoner's dilemma playing out.
Like, do we launch the nukes first? Do we let them launch first? What's the smart play here when we're both being rational, but also completely screwed if we mess up?
In the end, after spending trillions on a nuclear arms race, both superpowers ended up locked in a cycle of mutual assured destruction. Exactly the worst-case scenario the prisoner's dilemma predicts if everyone just looks out for number one. But get this. In the 1980s, a political scientist named Robert Axelrod ran a competition to find the best strategy for playing this game over and over again. And the simplest possible strategy, called Tit-for-Tat, won hands down. It basically just starts cooperating and then mirrors whatever the other player did last turn. So it's nice, but not a doormat. And by being clear, forgiving, and provocable, it somehow outperformed every other complex, tricky strategy designed by game theory experts.
You're telling me the dumbest, most obvious kid's game of "I'll do whatever you did last" somehow cracked the code for world peace?
Now you might be thinking, sure, that's all well and good for games and theory, but does this stuff actually apply to the real world? Well, consider this. From grooming partnerships in impala herds to nations negotiating nuclear treaties, all sorts of conflicts in nature and society end up looking just like an iterated prisoner's dilemma. So if something as straightforward as tit for tat can emerge victorious in these scenarios, maybe the recipe for human cooperation has been hardwired into our psychology all along.